What is going on, everyone? You are listening to State Your Case here with John Cole, WHIP Radio, Philadelphia's #1 college radio station, talking all things Pennsylvania politics. This is the second episode. Last week was the first week that I started this podcast. It was a fun week for a half hour. Talked all things from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh, all the way out to Erie for the mayoral race they have going on right now. So we're going to try to touch on big stories on each part of the state for each week. So I don't think this week, in my opinion, was as eventful as last week, but still plenty to talk about. Again, we don't want this only to focus on Philadelphia area, but we are going to start off here because the first thing we will discuss is the district attorney race that is coming up in just the primary is going to be in the month of May. Actually, on WHIP, myself, Taylor Allen, and Gino Amato just got done interviewing Tariq Al-Shabazz, one of the candidates for district attorney in the Democratic primary. But the reason we're going to talk about the DA's race is because we see the first quarter fundraising, and now we have an idea of who's putting out the most money and how much they cash on hand that they have. So according to a report here, this article is courtesy of politicspa.com, written by Paul Engelkheimer, who is the managing editor there. So the first quarter finance reports have come in for the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, and Michael Untermeyer filed with the most cash on hand with a sizable $455,766. Joe Kahn, a close second there, not too far behind with $442,635 in cash on hand. So both of those far in front there. And to me, this isn't too shocking that Untermeyer, that we realize he has that much cash in him, because as I mentioned on the podcast last week, that Untermeyer, to my knowledge, is the only candidate thus far to have put campaign ads out there. And I think it's a strategy where I think it's smart, considering, again, voter turnout for these elections tend to be rather low. So I think it's a smart move to get out there early on, so your name at least is known by the general public. Because I think, again, for the most part, many people in the state of Pennsylvania and in the city of Philadelphia specifically aren't really all that familiar with the names that are running for DA. Again, the only reason they probably are familiar with Seth Williams to a large scale the past couple months has been all the scandal he's been wrapped up in. So I think Untermeyer going out in the forefront, spending a lot of money, it makes sense. Again, he has the most cash in hand with $455,766. Joe Kahn coming in close second with $442,635. Rich Negrin coming in third with $189,121 in cash in hand. Then fourth, according to Newsworks, is Teresa Cardeni with $154,861 there. Lawrence Krasner filed with $127,592, and then trailing way behind is the two candidates who actually announced their candidacy after Seth Williams decided he was not going to seek re-election, and that is Jack O'Neill with $11,243 and Tariq Al-Shabazz with $10,425 in cash on hand. And it's also we're talking about, so we know the cash in hand. Now we also know the fundraising as well, and Untermeyer and Kahn also leading the pack in fundraising. Untermeyer bringing in $713,835, which is far and away in front of everyone else. So a lot of cash in hand. He's raised it so much money so far. Again, almost $750,000 there. And since the election is still over a month away, we know that he will still have he has more time to probably maybe break that threshold of $1 million. Joe Kahn, not only second in cash in hand, second in fundraising as well. He is at $506,657. Again, both of those candidates also loaned money to their campaigns during the first quarter. Though Untermeyer, it's also reported that he loaned $250,000 to his campaign to start the year, while Kahn loaned $54,000 to the campaign. No other Democrat loaned money to their campaign. So the big spenders thus far we are aware of is Untermeyer and Kahn, and we'd be remiss to not mention the one Republican that is in this is going to be running for DA is Beth Grossman. So again, she doesn't have 6 other Democrats to worry about in a primary like the Democrats. Again, have a crowded field. She is running again uncontested. She filed with $4,818.35 in cash on hand. Very specific there, how it breaks it down to the very cent. So it's worth noting that we're starting to see this race kind of start to play out as we get, again, we're just about a month and a week or two away from that election. Now we're getting the numbers, and not surprised that Untermeyer has raised the most money, has the most cash in hand. He's on the TV ads. I'm really fascinated to see who's going to be the next on television. My prediction is going to be Joe Kahn, in that he's the second most cash in hand. And he also, again, is the second in fundraising. He broke $500,000 when the next closest was nowhere near that. So it goes to show you that Kahn and Untermeyer are doing a fantastic job with fundraising. And I think it's about real soon we're going to see Kahn have some ads hit the airwaves as well. And we're going to stick on the topic of Joe Kahn for Philadelphia District Attorney, because he got a significant endorsement, a former Philadelphia District Attorney who became mayor of Philadelphia, who became governor of Pennsylvania, and he was the head of the DNC at one point years ago, and that is Governor Ed Rendell. He recently endorsed Joe Kahn in the Philly DA race, and Ed Rendell at the endorsement at City Hall, standing next to Kahn, talking about, he did not hold back punches, saying that it's interesting that he actually interviewed 3 candidates before choosing Kahn, so this wasn't, I guess, the easiest decision beforehand. Rendell had to, he was talking to a couple candidates and decided Kahn is the right man for the job in his opinion. Here's some quotes from Rendell to talk about what he thinks is a sad state of affairs in terms of the DA's office right now, considering all the scandal following Seth Williams. Here's a quote from Ed Rendell. Sadly, the DA's office is currently in crisis, but this election presents a great opportunity to change course and move a new direction. I believe we need a well-seasoned prosecutor with unquestioned integrity and a record of taking on every kind of tough case. So that's former Governor Ed Rendell weighing in, throwing his support behind Kahn, again, who is a University of Pennsylvania law professor. And his background, again, he's prosecuted sexual assault, political corruption, and hate crimes in both the DA's and U.S. Attorney's office. And he's one of the 7 Democrats running there. It's interesting to see that we now see the one endorsement in Governor Rendell, yet we still don't have the chairman of the Philadelphia Democratic Party, Bob Brady, Congressman Brady. He's still yet to endorse someone, and I'm really interested to see is when will that happen again. He alluded the reason he didn't endorse anyone yet was because of the division with ward leaders, and that a third of the support among Democratic ward leaders in the city of Philadelphia is with Rich Negrin. So about a quarter of that in second place is Tariq El-Shabazz. And then, again, the last 40% or so is divided amongst the 5. And Congressman Brady didn't feel comfortable enough stepping in yet to officially endorse someone. But Governor Rendell making it clear this week that Joe Kahn, he believes he should be the next district attorney in the city of Philadelphia. Now, the first 2 topics we talked about here, Philadelphia district attorney, another Philadelphia politician we're talking about, but it has state implications. So that wacky 197th primary that happened, a couple of weeks ago, where there was not an official Democrat on the ballot in PA 197, an extremely heavy Democratic district in the heart of Philadelphia. And the Republicans put up Lucinda Little. She obviously did not come out on top. But it was interesting that there was not an official Democrat on the ballot, considering they messed up. Little ended up winning 7.4% of the vote, which essentially isn't really much in the grand scheme of things, considering she was the only candidate on the ballot in North Philadelphia in that specific district. 85% is Democratic, registered Democrats, 5% Republican, 10% Independent. So in a sense that I guess Little maybe overperformed in that there's only 5% are registered Republican. She had 7.4%, so I guess a very minor victory there. But write-in candidate Emilio Vasquez, again, he's a Democratic ward leader in Philadelphia's 43rd ward. He won that election, and it's official that he has been sworn in for PA 197. But it's interesting. Here's an article from Chris Brennan posted this week. I'd recommend you to read it to get some background on it. It says, Vasquez sworn in for 197th district seat as investigation lawsuit looms, because they believe that there was, in the city of Philadelphia, specifically in this district, they think it's being investigated by city and state prosecutors for alleged voter fraud. And Vasquez, it's fascinating. He ended up winning 73.5% of the vote in that March 21st special election. But again, he wasn't officially on the ballot. He was just a write-in. He was sworn in by U.S. Chief Magistrate Judge Susan E. Schwab of the Middle District of Pennsylvania, accompanied by his mother and son. But those who ran against him, again, Sherry Honkala, who was the Green Party candidate, and Lucinda Little, we've seen that both of those have made comments that they allege that voters were intimidated or misled by illegal electioneering in polling places. So it's being investigated right now. Little was quoted saying, "What I saw on Election Day was absolutely appalling." Honkala also added, "We are asking for a new special election." So just when you thought this was a kind of a story of the past, who knows, as the investigation looms, again, Republicans thought they had a chance at getting another state rep in the city of Philadelphia. Currently, they have 3 with parts of Philadelphia, 2 of them only solely in the city of Philadelphia. Representative John Taylor, representing parts of the river wards in Northeast Philadelphia. He's been in the state legislature for over 3 decades now. And then you also have State Rep Martina White in PA 170, which is my district. She has been in office for only a couple years so far. And then they thought they had a chance since there was not a Democrat officially on the ballot. But hey, you have Vasquez, the Democrat, still winning. But maybe the story isn't over quite yet, considering that it's going to be investigated. So who knows? We'll see if Lucinda Little and Sherry Honkala, and when they have their day in court, we'll see if this gets overturned. Our next story, keeping it with Philadelphia, though, not on elected officials, but a big story nonetheless. So, again, just this week, after years of protest about working conditions and low wages, non-union Philadelphia airport workers vote to join a union. And it's pretty big stuff here. Again, for years, they've been protesting about working conditions and low wages. The article written by Linda Lloyd, a staff writer at Philadelphia Inquirer. The vote was held Tuesday night this past week, and it was 406 to 58 in favor of joining the nation's largest property service workers union, SEIU, Service Employers International Union, Local 32BJ. So that's the official union they're joining. Again, for the past 4 years, they've been trying to join SEIU, numerous protests for it. And again, the 1,400 workers for the airline voting to go there. It's interesting that for me, I guess I'm a bit surprised that it took this long. That, again, it's been a topic of discussion for them for quite some time. But finally, they decide to make the decision. And not only do they make the decision, I think it's an overwhelming fashion in which it's 406 to 58 to vote to join Service Employees International Union Local 32BJ, SEIU Local 32BJ. So it's interesting to see how their wages are going to change since they joined that union. Here's some quotes. The workers want, so beginning on July 1st, 2015, just some context for you. The workers want an agreement with the city to be paid $11 an hour in keeping with a, quote, livable wage, standard approved by Philadelphia voters in May 2014. But before that, again, just a couple years ago, 2014, they were earning as little as $7.75 an hour plus tips. Since then, though, as we know, the political landscape has changed in the city of Philadelphia and at the state level, that the workers have now demanded $15 an hour and threatened to strike ahead of the DNC late July to protest unfair labor practices and low wages. And now it says, again, most Philadelphia workers, including maintenance, janitors, and employees who work directly for airlines, belong to labor unions. So I guess maybe this was a long time coming. We'll see that since they officially decided to join this union, how we'll see them in the news moving forward. But finally, we can move out of just the city of Philadelphia. There are other races worth talking about, and there's a race for mayor of Pittsburgh. Mayor Bill Peduto is being challenged by 2 other Democrats in a primary. City Councilwoman Darlene Harris and Reverend John Welch, both competing for that spot. All polls indicate that Mayor Peduto is going to keep the seat and win again. I'd be shocked if one of these challengers were to take him down, but it's still noteworthy that a Democrat and a rather, pretty democratic city in Pittsburgh, not as liberal as Philadelphia, but it's a safe democratic city for mayors for the most part, getting a challenge on that side. But it's in the news because Harris, the councilwoman, is questioning the legality of campaign finance reports. So again, she didn't. Well, it's worth noting that she didn't file a campaign finance report Monday with the city's ethics hearing board, as required under 2015 ordinance. Here's a quote from former Allegheny County Councilman and State Democratic Party Chairman Jim Byrne, who's advising Harris's campaign. He said, "We believe that we're in compliance with all appropriate laws and requirements. We have serious reservations about the legality and enforceability of the city ordinance." And he continued to say, "Nobody's afraid of anything here. We're not against transparency. We do have concern about a poorly drafted piece of legislation." And it's interesting to see that, that she's decided not to reveal this. It's obviously noteworthy, though, that when she's trying to, make this push to be mayor of Pittsburgh, to take down Mayor Peduto in that primary, I think in today's day and age, I think transparency is pretty important. I think a lot of people like to see what the campaign finance reports are. Heck, I started off this podcast talking about the campaign finance reports thus far in the race for district attorney here in the city of Philadelphia. And I think people like to know how much cash on hand they have, who's spending what, where are they getting their money from. I think a lot of people like to know this. I think it's a bold move on Councilwoman Harris's part to, basically not listening to this ethics hearing board's 2015's ordinance, and basically saying that, look, they think that we're not against transparency. We do have concerns about a poorly drafted piece of legislation. Ultimately, since I'm not in Pittsburgh, I don't know exactly what the sentiment is there with the voters, but the polls indicate that she's rather far behind, and I don't know necessarily her making this stand to I know she's questioning the legality of campaigns' finance reports, but this is an ordinance, and I wonder if this is going to be viewed as a move that's popular, that she's fighting against this rule, or is this going to backfire because it may be, in turn, maybe making her look a bit that she's lacking transparency. Moving on to other parts of the state, though, talking about education. The Republicans control the legislature, so obviously anytime a Democrat wants to get something done, very unlikely. But there are Democrats, two of them specifically, two state reps stepping up, trying to fight for adequate community college funding. State reps Rob Matzey in the 16th district, with state rep Jim Marshall representing the 14th district. Basically, they're the co-chairman of the Community College Caucus, in which they are trying to. They're arguing that Pennsylvania's 14 community colleges need to be properly funded to meet changing needs of students. Here's a quote from the state rep. "Education is the currency of progress, and Pennsylvania's community colleges are the gold standard for expanding opportunities for its citizens." He said that during a rally in the Capitol this past Tuesday with students at the Pennsylvania Commission for Community College, the PCCC. Another quote from Matzey, he continued to state, "You will find no better avenue than our community colleges for elevating incomes and ensuring brighter futures throughout the land." State Rep Jim Marshall, representing PA 14, also quoted on, furthered the discussion, saying why he supported it, stating, "Community colleges are a great option for traditional and non-traditional students. They offer open admission, low tuition, and a variety of educational programs that build career skills or prepare students for a four-year degree. More important, our community colleges are the most affordable option for higher education. They also have the flexibility to adjust their programming based on local or regional needs." So, again, it's obvious that they're trying to make this push in a GOP-controlled legislature. I don't see real movement made on this in the interim. As a matter of fact, not these specific representatives, but a couple years ago, my Congressman Brendan Boyle, who at the time was my state rep, proposed a bill in PA to deal with public-funded universities, which I believe stated if you have a certain GPA, it should basically be free. Now we're seeing maybe that initiative was perhaps too ambitious in that Maybe if you start with a smaller scale with trying to make progress with community colleges, I'm interested to see how many Republicans, whenever they propose legislation, could come on board for this. Obviously, you're going to have every Democrat, I guarantee, in the state legislature is going to be for lowering the cost of community colleges or increasing the funding for it. But I'm curious to see is how many Republicans are going to try to maybe I wonder if any of them, maybe specifically here in Philly, are they going to maybe move to the middle or to the left on this issue and say, yeah, we do need more funding for the community colleges here in the state of Pennsylvania. So again, that is State Rep Rob Matze representing the 16th district here in Pennsylvania, alongside State Rep Jim Marshall, who represents the 14th district. Now, at the state level as well, we're talking about Pennsylvania, and we talked, I think, a decent amount about reform for elections in a past podcast, and it's in the news again, and here's why. An interesting article from politicspa.com. Again, this was posted April 3rd. I'd recommend all to read it, considering some possible, implications to the election process here in PA and where you vote. So it's called Maryland to Pennsylvania, you first. So here's the article goes. Maryland is putting the pressure on Pennsylvania and 4 other states to institute redistricting reform. According to Keystone Crossroads, Maryland is proposing a 6-state agreement to institute an independent commission to draw congressional districts. The other 4 states included in this are New York, New Jersey, North Carolina, Virginia, so all in this eastern seaboard. It's interesting, though, because you have a state, Maryland's pushing PA to do this, but it's fascinating how the roles are reversed in legislature there, because the state of Maryland has a Republican governor, but overwhelmingly the state is controlled by Democrats by a wide margin. And here we are in the state of Pennsylvania, where in the state house, overwhelmingly, it is controlled by Republicans, but we have a Democratic governor in Tom Wolf. And here's some quotes I want to read off of those that are in favor of this independent commission that, again, would, when there's redistricting, instead of whoever party is in power, to have this independent commission draw these boundaries. Here's a quote from State Senator Lisa Vascola, representing Northampton. She's a Democrat. I'm glad to see Maryland did this. I'm definitely taking a look, and I will mirror that legislation in Pennsylvania. We have to do something, and this might get it moving. And I think it's interesting because I would like to see something done on this specifically, because in a sense, every so many years we're going to have the discussion of, is it fair that whatever party's in power, in a sense, can draw the lines and determine where you're voting at the local level for local elections and, for congressional districts as well. Excuse me there, but I'm happy to see that movements being made in 6 states here on the eastern seaboard that are at least considering it. Because I actually, I guess, from a personal anecdote, saw it in my district where I live. Growing up, my district was considered part of Pennsylvania 8, the 8th Congressional District, which encompassed just my neighborhood in far northeast Philadelphia and parts of Bucks County. A rather more conservative district, not really that conservative, but considering for Philadelphia standards, my neighborhood would be, I'd suppose, for Philadelphia standards, it would be conservative. But years ago, my Congressman Patrick Murphy was a Democrat. He ended up winning in 2006. He took down Mike Fitzpatrick, a Republican. He held that seat for two terms and lost in 2010. And it's interesting, after 2010 came around, I was no longer part of PA8. They did redistricting. The Republican-controlled legislator had cut my district out of PA8 and then not lumped us in, but put us in with PA13, which is the 13th Congressional District, which is northeast Philadelphia and parts of Montgomery County. But it's fascinating to see this happens every so many years, and both parties do it, where they strategically place, they know certain areas that are either more liberal or conservative. They try to lump them in. You suppose that Republicans in that legislature realized that my neighborhood was more liberal than their parts of Bucks County, that they decided to cut out my neighborhood and a little bit of that area, and that put them at PA13, which is a much more liberal district, and where a Democrat, Congressman Boyle, has he's the congressman for my district. If you were to run a PA8, I don't know if you would win, but it's interesting that you have the redistricting. Now they're looking for solutions like this basically to have an independent commission. I think it's a great idea, and it's cool to see that you have Maryland having a different reason for it. You have the Republican governor, yet the state legislature run by Democrats. You flip over here to PA, it's the exact opposite, in which you have a Republican-controlled legislator, but you have a Democratic governor in Tom Wolf. But last topic of the day, talking about some of those officials here in PA who are known at the national scale because they are, one's a congressman, one's a senator, and they're taking jabs at each other. And there's nothing like a good political fight, and I find it fascinating. One's a senator, one's a congressman, so they don't directly deal with each other per se, but they both represent Pennsylvania. So the senator is Bob Casey, and the congressman is Mike Kelly, representing Butler County in PA. Trading jabs at each other over what? Over Neil Gorsuch. So we know it's very contentious. Bob Casey decided that he is not going to support Neil Gorsuch to be the next Supreme Court justice to replace the late Antonin Scalia. We have a total of 3 Democrats who announced they would: Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia, Senator Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota, and Senator Donnelly of Indiana, all conservative states. But since Pennsylvania is rather moderate, I think there was an expectation that maybe Casey would be one of those yes votes, but he wasn't. So Republicans coming out guns blazing saying that they're just being obstructionists. This guy is very qualified. Well, Congressman Kelly and Senator Casey's feud is very entertaining. So Congressman Kelly made it, let it known to Sunburn Daily Item that how big of a mistake this is for Casey, saying that Casey is against the most qualified nominee for Supreme Court that we've ever had. And continuing his attack on Casey, Congressman Kelly stated, the only thing that they have in common is their name, talking about Casey's father. Casey's father, of course, was the governor of Pennsylvania decades ago. So saying he's nothing like his father, the exact quote, the only thing they have in common is their last name. And Senator Casey seeing these reports, well, time obviously to fight back. Senator Casey spokesman John Rizzo took a jab back, saying when Congressman Kelly is in hiding from his constituents who want a town hall, he's floating baseless conspiracy theories about President Obama running a shadow government and launching snippy attacks on others. And Rizzo continued, we are becoming a bit concerned about Congressman Kelly. Maybe Washington has gotten to him. Kelly's another name to watch out for, considering that he's a name that's speculated that he might want to make a push for governor. He might try to challenge Governor Wolf or even Senator Casey, the guy he's taking jabs at. It's interesting that, this feud starting now. Maybe this is just a precursor, a preview that he's going to run. But anyway, that's the last story I wanted to talk about for the week, is that 2 high-profile guys trading jabs. Congressman Kelly letting it be known that he thinks that Senator Casey is far too liberal. He's nothing like his father, who was the Democratic governor here in PA. And Senator Casey's people, specifically his spokesperson, John Rizzo, making it known that he thinks that Congressman Kelly is hiding from his constituents from a town hall. Ultimately, he needs to be worrying about them. So, fun political fight there. But anyway, we want to thank you for listening to State Your Case here this week on WHIP. I'll be back next week talking about the biggest stories that week. Something tells me the soda tax will be in the news, and we'll continue to cover the district attorney race, as next week there's a Millennial Town Hall Wednesday night in Center City from 6 to 8 p.m. Those interested, it's only $5 ticket ahead of time, 10 at the door. I'm going to be attending, and I'll give you my breakdown of that next week after I attend. But for WHIP, I'm John Cole. This was State Your Case.